This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Go to our website at wdtatpodcast.com and click on support to learn how you can be part of this effort to learn how to have better conversations, increase compassion, and build bridges, not walls. You can make a one-time donation or become a patron for as little as $1 a month and receive patron-only benefits. Thanks to all of our patrons at any level for your support. You are what makes this happen and what makes this possible. Thank you. Now let's get into the interview. There are a ton of podcasts out there these days. I'm going to be sharing some of them with you from time to time through bonus episodes and promotions in regular episodes. This bonus episode is from We Got This podcast with Daryl and Cheyenne Smith. They have candid conversations about a lot of different topics, including divorce, self-love, positivity, mindsets, and body image. Just a heads up that there is some swearing if that's not your thing. This episode is all about things you might want to talk about before getting married. If you enjoy it, check out their podcast at wgtpodcast.com or look for their links in the show notes.
Hey everyone, I'm Daryl.
And I'm Cheyenne.
And we're married.
And once divorced.
Yeah, that was me.
But I got 2 beautiful daughters out of it. We're not only a team as a family, but in business as well.
And by sharing our success stories,
and some failures,
I think that you'll find you're not alone in life. From business, parenting, relationships, and everything in between, the We Got This podcast is packed with funny and insightful conversation to make you laugh and think on a whole new level.
Our monkeys, our circus. Welcome to our crazy life.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking about a few different things. What are we talking about, babe? I don't even fucking remember.
We are talking about what you should discuss before you marry someone. So we had a listener that wrote in that had asked us what topics we think people should talk about before they get married. So I did a little bit of research. Of course, whenever I'm at the hair shop doing hair, that's the best place for research.
Fuck.
Right? Like you
Sure.
have women pinned to a chair with scissors behind their head, and some men. So I did get some good research done on the couple of days of the week that I still do hair. Did you do some research on the topic?
Yeah, there's a bunch of people had messaged in, and you kind of look up a few things on here online, and I mean we pull a lot from personal experiences because being divorced, you understand kind of where you failed in the past, and we kind of talked about that in earlier podcasts. Is that you kind of define yourself by your failures, right, and kind of where you can learn from those. So I think we've kind of compiled a pretty good list of what we need to accomplish.
I agree.
Do you want to start it off?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with this one because I was chatting with a girlfriend last night, and we were actually just talking about a date that she had been on, and this topic kind of came up in their conversation. So they're obviously not even to the point where they'd even be talking about marriage, but it was something that was a no-go for her, so it instantly made it so that they weren't going to go on any more dates. So this, really? I think, to me, would be a good one to discuss. The discussion would be, where are you going to live? And so for her, she doesn't ever want to move away from this area. She likes this area. This person does not plan on staying in this area, is going to move somewhere else. So I think for me, a big discussion would be maybe even early on in a relationship before maybe even you're getting to the engaged part, would be to discuss where you're going to live. I know for you and I, it was something that we discussed quite early. I do like this area, but my goal has never been to retire here. I really do like the warmth and a little less snow.
It's because you're old.
I'm not old.
Every
I'm
morning.
just
My
like
knees are killing me.
I know. I'm like a 30-something-year-old stuck in an 80-something-year-old's body. It's horrible.
I'll
But
take out extra insurance for you maybe when we get close to retirement age.
maybe.
But
I know for us, where we're going to live in the future was something that we had discussed. And although I don't know that we've really pinpointed where we are going to live, I think that we are both open to the idea of not living in this area forever.
No, especially not for us. But I think if we're talking about other people and understanding where, their goals are to where they want to live, it's kind of important, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, because if you decide that you want to have kids, that's kind of one of those things that'll nail you down to a certain degree, because you try and minimize the amount of disruption. But it's not to say that the kids aren't resilient enough, but it's definitely a big thing, because it's not everybody's a city girl, not everybody's a city boy or a farm girl or farm boy. So
Well, yeah, and that's even if depending on where you're going to live, like geographically, right? I said that right?
yeah, or even a type of lifestyle.
Well, so then that's the next thing. So yeah, you pick, what town or area that you're going to live in. But are you going to live in the city or are you going to live in the country? For me, it was obviously a no-go. We're not living in town. Not happening.
Well, we tried, we did for a little bit.
Well, but if you want to call where my house was when we met town, that was enough of town for me. And it was not even in the city. It was in like a little community where I had a couple of neighbors.
It was a cute little...
that were not like an arm's length away from my window. But for us, no town. So I do think that, yeah, you need to figure out like what country, what province, what state, whatever you're going to live in. And then you need to figure out, in town, in the country.
What do you say that when somebody wants to change their mind? Is that something that you obviously need to talk about as well? Like I said,
No
short term,
takey-backies.
long term.
You can't take it back.
No takes backs. No take backs. I don't know. I think that has a lot to do with the conversation into communication, right? Like, what type of communication do you and your partner have? Because at the end of the day,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I just moved and the chair made it sound like I farted. Are you going to be able to hear that?
I have no idea. We'll happen to see what it looks like in post.
If it sounds like somebody's farting, it's the chair. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Jesus. Do we want to pause this for a second?
I'm good.
No. But I mean, the communication is such a huge part. But I think that living, deciding where you want to live or the type of lifestyle that you want to live, again, I think those are two different questions or two different conversations that you should have. It has a lot to do with communication on short-term goals and long-term goals, because you might be happy and fine living in the city or living in a small town just outside of a big city. But also if you're living outside of town, there's a lot of sacrifices and a lot of things that people aren't really considering when they decide that, hey, I'm going to go buy an acreage, and they're not really, eyes wide open when they kind of go into that. So being able to communicate that without having to jump on kind of a whim and just go buy a place, and to live a lifestyle that you're not particularly used to or have the ability to adapt to, can really put a strain on a marriage big time.
Yes. So I think discussing where you're going to live would be a very good discussion early on in a relationship.
Is this a first date thing?
Well, not our first date. I think our first date, we pretty much covered everything that is on my list.
I don't think we decided where we were going to live.
Yeah, I told you I was not going to live in the city.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And I said I didn't want to live.
The type of lifestyle that you wanted to live.
Yeah, and I said that I didn't want to stay here forever. Nope, we covered all of this. Pretty sure my whole list. Pretty sure.
Is that one of your check boxes, like we discussed before?
That you have to listen to me where we're going to move to?
No, you said that when we first did it, you said that you went back to the hair shop and you were telling the girls that you were checking off all the check boxes.
Yeah, it didn't matter where we're going to live.
Oh.
But you were open to the idea.
Just as long as you're with me.
Yes. I am happy as long as I am with you in -40 weather, freezing my boobs off.
Pretty good boobs. I think another big one would be finances, and not necessarily just who's going to be running the household when it comes to paying the bills or anything to that effect. I learned it because it was so different for me from my previous marriage to even when we first started dating and kind of living together. I've always apparently it's an old school way of things about having a joint account and everything kind of comes out of one account, and I never knew anything different. But then when we got together, it was like you were like, hell no, like we're having two separate accounts. You pay your bills, I pay mine, and we kind of that segued right into even in our marriage is that we both still have separate accounts. However, the bills are kind of, I guess, split or we kind of manage that differently. But I thought it was really interesting and very odd when we first got together. It was like, what do you mean you don't want to have a joint account? I'm like,
you did think it was really odd. Like
I did. It was weird.
You were almost offended by the fact that I was like, I'm keeping my own account. I don't think it's an old school way for people to have their finances together. From like the research that I've done the last little bit, and then just talking to clients even before we got married, because of course my clients are the ones that like helped me decide my whole life. A lot of people do have their finances together with their spouses, and it was interesting because some of my older clients, like clients that have been married for 15, 20 years, a piece of advice that they would give me is, even if you have a joint account, have your own account. And they're like, whether it's like a secret account or it's like a... But,
that's horrible.
Well, but they had a good reason. And the reason why they had a secret account...
Do you have a secret account?
No, because I have my own account.
Oh.
Well,
so that's
and you know
technically
about my other account too. But so their reason for their secret account was so that they were able to surprise their spouse with things. Because when you share a joint account, if you're not the one in charge of the finances and you have somebody else checking over things on a daily or a weekly basis, then you go to buy your spouse a gift and they're like, well, why
what are you doing at the mall spending $250?
Like, why did you spend all this money? Yeah. And you know me, surprises are my favorite thing. And so I think if you didn't have cash coming in, like, so for me, I do get some tips. So I could technically hide money from you with cash.
You hide money from yourself. Jesus Christ, you went in there and you found a new purse and you're like, holy fuck, there's $200.
No, it wasn't a new purse. It was our travel purse and it was only $100.
Jesus Christ. So I say to people all the time, if you want to, when we go on vacation, we don't necessarily save. We just start going through Cheyenne's coat pockets and old purses. And we usually find enough to make do.
It's not a bad thing. But that was the reasoning to have like their secret account, was so that they were able to buy stuff for their spouse without them knowing. And so for me, that was part of the reason why I was like, I just want to keep my own account. And then another reason that I had was, I had an aunt who lost my uncle, and I remember when...
Like at the mall?
No, isn't he like passed away, lost my uncle.
I'm not being insensitive. I was just trying to make a joke.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Sorry.
So sensitive you are. But no, so like in the process of her grieving and going through all this crap, she had to deal with the banks. And I never realized until hearing her story and then chatting with some of my clients now that have, lost spouses, how hard it is to get your money out of your bank when your spouse passes away. And on top of it, you have to like close down your accounts, reopen accounts. And I was like, I don't like that kind of stuff to begin with. I'm not that type of person. Like for me to go and open a bank account and have to redo all of the online crap is just...
Fuck it, I'll just stay married to him.
Well, I feel like, yeah, he's like, anyway.
Cheaper to keep her.
Well, no, but like when you pass away, like I was thinking for the long game, like I just think when you're grieving somebody and you're going through that, the last thing you want to do is have to worry about trying to get your money to be able to pay for stuff in that situation. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I really like to be able to surprise people. I think being able to like hide what I'm spending was a good reason. The ease of not having to go through all of the banking crap all over again was a huge one for me, because you know me, it's not that I'm lazy, I just really don't like that kind of stuff. And then I think for us, like you had a good point where you're like, but I really want a joint account so that that you have the ability to be able to put money somewhere that I could get it. Although I don't have a bank card for our joint account. I don't think I remember the online banking information. So really,
Well, I have it saved on your computer, but
I'm still kind of hooped. But for me, that was a big one, was to keep things separate. And I know it was really surprising for you and it had upset you for a little while. But once we kind of got into the role of you understanding how we would pay for things, I think it works well for us for the most part.
yeah, like I said, I was new to me, and I've obviously adapted very well to it, because to me, it was very difficult on two different levels, especially, God forbid, things don't work out. Like in my side, it didn't. To be able to, like you had said, if somebody dies, or even when you get divorced, for me,
Not when you get divorced. Not everybody is
that's
going
not
to
what I
get
meant.
divorced.
That's not what I meant.
Come on here.
I was like, if somebody dies, or if God forbid you happen to get divorced, it's very, very difficult to start moving your finances once things have already been kind of in the toilet. So something as simple as getting your own account, and I have, like, when I was going through my separation, you were starting to open up your own account and then moving like your cell phone and your truck payment and all that stuff over to the new account. And during that time, sometimes, like, payments are coming out early, or it's just like there might be a bit of a delay. So then you might miss a payment, or the payment might come out a little bit early just because of whatever. And I tried to say, okay, well, listen, I'll just throw the same overdraft that I had from my previous account on my new account. And because you were going through that separation, or I was going through that separation, sorry, the bank basically told me, you're out of your mind. Like, we can't loan you anything. And that's what an overdraft is. It's basically like an internal loan. And so basically you were stuck kind of making sure that everything kind of worked out. And it didn't for me a few times, where the truck payment had come out, and now you're delinquent on it, and it's just an absolute pain in the ass. So coming into our relationship, it was super cut and dry. It to me, it sounded so foreign, and I'm like, man, this is super, super odd. But once you kind of got used to it, it was super easy to understand that I didn't have to worry about this bill or that bill on a financial level when you're looking at your account and making sure things are getting paid, because I know that you had that taken care of. And if for some reason, if you're in a relationship where, she or he's not, didn't have the best of week or month or whatever, you're able to kind of communicate and say, listen, I need another $300 to make this payment. And you just go ahead and transfer it over to them. That's where the easy part is if you had the accounts at the same branch or at the same financial institution.
That's the other thing, is you and I
that
don't
is
bank
super easy
at the same banks.
Yeah, so for me, if I was to suggest, listen, if you guys are going to have separate accounts, which is fine, I think if you had the opportunity earlier in your relationship to have separate accounts at the same bank, it's very, very easy to transfer money from one bank account to another.
It's
specifically
still not
for the
that bad now.
specifically for the RBC, for me, it's just you just transfer from my account to your account, and and the money is there. There's no hold. There's nothing.
Well, that's the same
but
with
for me
BMO
to transfer
if we're going to start plugging our banks.
well, but for me to transfer over to the BMO, you have to send you an e-transfer, and then you have to go in and sometimes like your BMO e-transfers take forever.
First date, ask where your date bank's at.
Yeah. Look for some financial statements.
So if
maybe a credit
anybody
report.
is wondering if you are going into a marriage, or if you are thinking about maybe separating your finances, just a quick rundown on how Daryl and I do it, because it was super foreign to him and he really just didn't understand how it was going to work. And so we pretty much kind of split our bills. So like, I know that Daryl takes care of one mortgage in a month. I take care of the other mortgage, because we do have two different mortgages. I take care of like the cell phone and the internet and that kind of stuff. And then Daryl takes care of some other like monthly bills that are coming in, like the heating and power and like all that kind of stuff. And so everything's kind of split. And so we just know that it's each other's responsibility to cover our bills. And so it's just the same as whenever you're single, that I have like my truck payment coming out this month, my mortgage, whatever. And you just take care of your own shit. And one of the things that you had said is that it's nice because we can transfer each other the money over if something happens and we have a bad month, or, and I know for me, like, because I do all of our grocery shopping, and so the 90% of the groceries are paid for from me. And so because both of my careers are not a set income, some months I do make a lot less money. And I think one of the things that it did take us a little while to learn after I had quit my career that had a set income was that there'd be some months that I was living on like pennies, and Daryl would be like, Shy, we have no groceries. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, you just got to wait for 3 days or whatever. I'm going to go grocery shopping because I don't have enough money right now. And he'd be like, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have just transferred you over a couple $100, or I could have went grocery shopping. And so for us, it was something that I needed to work on because I'm not used to asking somebody for money. Like, that was nothing that I ever had in my previous relationship.
You still have that problem,
Well,
even though we're married. I'm like, babe.
I know. So,
well, because you go and spend whatever on the tires for the truck, and you're whatever, you're going to wait a couple days for groceries, and I'm like, well, just tell me, I'll go pick up the groceries and I'll pay for them, because you like to do that click and shop or whatever the hell it is.
yes.
And I think that's amazing, by the way.
Click and collect.
Click and collect.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But yeah, that would be my suggestion, is just make sure that if you guys are doing like the separate accounts and the separate bills, is to make sure that you're communicating who's paying what bill, because you are putting obviously trust in each other that you're going to be paying your bills.
And that's your credit.
But for me, I like it because I at least know half of what is going on in our life. I know some relationships, they have a person in charge of like the money, and that person is in charge of paying the bills and where everything is allocated every month. And then the other person has no idea. Like, they don't know what their power bill is every month, or they don't know, they just don't understand like how much money is going out. And so I think that at least being able to pay half, because we are so busy, and I just really can't care to sit down and discuss with you how much money we have going out every month.
Well, it's very important to sit down, specifically for budgeting, because I know budgeting is a big deal, because ultimately, I guess that would be another topic for me, would be basically budgeting, and it's kind of, along with the whole the finances side of things, is that the budgeting side of things, you have to understand, is that you have to treat your household like a business. There's money that comes in, and then there's expenses that come out, right? And if that can't balance, or that isn't balancing, you need to make cuts. Just like any other business, if you're spending too much money, you got to make cuts, right? Whether you're firing employees or you're reducing your costs on, some of the procurement, at the end of the day, you need to be able to make adjustments. So, and as a team, as the husband and wife team, you have to sit down and make those budget decisions together, right? Okay, I guess we're not going to go on our family vacation this year through California. And that's what one of the things that we had talked about. It's like, for everything that we had going on for that year, we're not going to be able to afford that. So what we can afford is this type of vacation. And, the kids are just going to have to live with that. And sometimes those are hard decisions to make, because those are the things that you really, really want to get done. But again, you can still make those decisions, because if you really, really want to get that done, you can make sacrifices in other areas.
Right.
But ultimately, the communication is to, the money that comes in, the money that goes out, and kind of go, okay, really. And, the Royal Bank has a really good, at the bottom, it basically kind of categorizes all of your spending in terms of, groceries or bills.
So you know how much money you spend on Starbucks every month?
Yeah, like it totally, you can set up the different classifications, and it's great. Like I said, it's basically like a personal budgeting financing calculator, and it's very, very quickly to see, how much money you're spending out on groceries, or how much money you're spending out at eating out or entertainment or alcohol.
Yeah.
So
I think going over budget would be a good one for people. And the other thing too
but all I'm saying is that it's a great tool. Like if you're not sure on how to do that, there are financial planners that you can go to and seek advice. And I mean, even online through the RBC, they have great tools there that you can start with without having to talk to anybody, because not necessarily talking to somebody else about your finances is not everybody is comfortable doing that as well, because there's a lot of skeletons in some guys' closets, right?
My other suggestion would be to, when you go over your budget, would to be to figure out like your fun money. I know every relationship is different. Some people are smokers, some people are gamblers, some people are drinkers. So if you have any of those vices and you're spending a crap pile of money every month on these things, I think discussing with your partner where that money is going to come from would be a big one. And for me, that comes out of your fun money, your personal money, right? And so, you know, on the other end, it could be women getting their hair done or their nails done, or I don't know, maybe somebody that likes to, I don't know, like whatever you do with your money.
Mhm.
But I think having a budget on, okay, we each get, you know, $200 a month for fun money, you know, no questions
and
asked.
here's cash.
Yeah, like
I would suggest doing it cash.
yeah, like you don't
Here's
have
the cash,
to ask
that's
each
it.
other. Like if we make big purchases, we always try to discuss with each other before we do that. Although I'm pretty sure we've had a few things show up on the farm that I was like, I don't remember us talking about you buying this.
Oh, I would like to know what you're talking about.
We're not going to get into that list,
Why?
but I do suggest.
Lots of things show up in the house too. You're like,
I know, like my
where did
shoes
this come
that
from?
follow me home.
Yeah,
But
you come
I
home
haven't-
and I'm like, why does it smell like leather in here?
I haven't had new
Like, never
shoes for
mind.
quite some
I
time.
know.
I've been really good. But yes, so discuss with your partner, like your fun money, that kind of stuff. Because I think for a lot of relationships, that's what gets people in an argument is, well, you spent this money on this and I haven't bought anything for myself. Well, if my thing is Starbucks and I buy a Starbucks every day of the month, I've spent my fun money on coffee.
Oh, Jesus, $5 a coffee.
I spent my whole thing, and some people don't think of it like that way, but I do. I'm very much, if you're going to spend money on something that you don't need, that's your fun money. So I would discuss that. So for me, I think money, discuss money.
Yeah, and you know what though, finances and money, talking about those types of vices are very, very difficult. And if you guys have the ability as a couple to talk candidly about, you know, your financial situation and some of your vices, and I had wrote down actually some of your addictions. Like you said, if you're addicted to, you know, tobacco or alcohol or gambling, I mean, that is something that you, if you're going to be serious with somebody, especially before a marriage, if you know your husband or your wife loves to go to the casino and goes and blows a couple $100 on a Friday after payday, but you hate to talk about it because you're afraid to get into an argument, I'm telling you, if you think that's going to go away after you get married, it's definitely not. So if you can't have those conversations now, it's going to be even. The consequences are much greater once you sign that piece of paper, because now your obligations are so much more as a married couple to each other. So it's very, very important to be able to have those candid conversations and to have the tough ones, to be able to really move through the relationship with the least amount of stress is very, very important.
Next on my list is careers. So for me, I guess I'm like, I don't know if it's not a touchy subject. Maybe it's a touchy subject.
Why?
I just think in life, after people have the kids, which I guess would be next on my list, or maybe that should be on my list first, I don't know. But people just assume that after you have a kid, you can't work. And so, like, it's been really interesting at the hair shop with my boss. She's pregnant with baby number 2, and first baby, like, we don't get mat leave when you're a hairstylist. I know Canada's great and has like parental leave.
Or a owner of a photography studio.
Yeah, or no photography.
Or a business owner. Like, you don't get that shit.
Well, some business owners do because they're set up.
If they're employees.
Yeah, if they're
but
set
if you're
up.
the business owner and you did it right, you wouldn't be an employee. That's a whole other podcast.
But anyway, so she doesn't get mat leave. But for her, she's like me. She really loves what she does. And she came back to work quite quickly after the first one. And people were really surprised. But we're hearing it even more now with the second one. They're like, oh, you're not going to take like a full year off. And she said, she's like, no, like I love what I do. I want to come back to work. It's my, like, it's where I get my interaction with people. And she gets out of the house and
She keeps her fucking sanity.
well, yeah. And I think, and again, like each to their own. There are some women that would really just love to stay at home with their kids, and I think that that's great. So I think that this is why, to me, talking about your careers is so important, because if you're going to have kids, which we can chat about that next, is are you as a woman or a dad, because we have a friend who the dad stays home. Actually, I think we know a few people where the dads stay home. Like, so it's not uncommon.
No, not anymore.
But I think that, yeah, you need to have that discussion on, if we have kids, does somebody have to quit their job?
Well, I mean, again, we're talking about the career, right? Like, I mean, are you
Yes.
going to give up your career to have children?
But
So-
do you have to give up your career to have children? That's the question, is do you have to quit your job if you have a kid?
I think it depends on the type of lifestyle that you're choosing to. Like, there's a lot of factors. The type of lifestyle that you're going to live. I mean, the type of career that you're going to choose. So, what type of finances that you're going to have, during the career, when you're working or when you're not. Are you self-employed? Because then at that point, you know what I mean. There's a lot of different factors. So I think that, I think it doesn't really affect what your career is if you're going to have kids or not. But it's definitely going to affect your life after you have a kid, depending on the type of career that you have.
Yeah, I think that would be something to discuss, is if you have kids, the career situation, baby number 1, baby number 2, baby number 3, and so on. Like, I know for my sister, baby number 1, she still worked. It was great. Baby number 2, she still worked a little bit, but by the time baby number 3 came, childcare in Alberta is so ridiculously
Well, I
priced.
think childcare everywhere is a fucking shit show.
Well, maybe, yeah. I don't pay for childcare, so I don't know. But that's the thing, is you sit there and you figure it out. And my sister was like, I'm pretty much paying money to go to work. Because by the time she
if
paid
it's
for her
costing
fuel
her, yeah.
and having 3 kids in like daycare or whatever, it was costing her money. So for her at the time, it was easier for her to make the lifestyle change to stay at home and do things from home. And it's not like she just sat there and ate bonbons and
Bonbons?
bonbons.
Bonbons?
I
Is
don't
that
know.
like an edible?
She didn't just sit in the house and do nothing. But
Well,
yeah,
the thing is about that is that with the childcare, I kind of have a different view on that, because I mean, if you have 3 or 4 kids, I mean, Jesus Christ, that would be an absolute, fortune to do that. But I think once you get to that 3rd and 4th kid, the kids are going to school, so there's different dynamic there.
but not necessarily if you have them all 2 years apart.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is at 4 years old or 5 years old, they're going to be in grade 1 or kindergarten, right? So there's
No.
Yeah.
5 years old, you're in kindergarten.
that's right. But 4 years old, you get to go, or is it 5 years?
And
Yeah,
you-
but there's still
and in
there's
kindergarten,
still
you're only
pre-kindergarten
there-
stuff. Like
yes,
there's still
but
pre.
you're not there full time.
it's
And
basically-
what job is going to let you be like, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go pick up Johnny from play school at 1:00?
No, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is that you're going to get a type of job that's going to allow you to do that. So,
I would like to know what kind of job you're going to find that's going to allow you to do that.
well, you can find part-time jobs that allow you to go stock shelves at Safeway for on a part-time basis to be able at certain times of the day. I mean,
We can have that argument another day.
is there not people at hair shops that come in there and
No.
they kind of clean up or they do whatever? Anyway, at the end of the day, I'm sure there's some job that would actually work. But for me, it has nothing to do with about the type of job or how it's going to work in your schedule. That's something that you'll have to figure out. But what I'm saying is that to put kids in childcare, just so that you can go to work, when realistically you're only working to basically pay for the childcare, so it's kind of like a net zero. It's a wash. There's a certain value to that when it comes to your sanity as a mother or a father that is doing that, because the social interaction that you have, with other adults specifically, is something that you can't, or you tend to forget how important that is, because once you have kids and you're stuck at home and everything is great for the first few months, and all of a sudden they just go stir crazy and they just want to have a conversation with another adult. Having the ability to go to work for 4 or 5 hours to gain some of that sanity and to not have to change a diaper or to make lunch or change the goddamn DVD over for the 11th million episode of fucking Paw Patrol it kind of allows you to gain that sanity back. And if you're in a relationship where that person is basically going crazy because all they're doing is staying at home, it puts a huge amount of stress on that relationship. And I mean, there's only a handful of people who have that, what would that be, that internal motherly, fatherly kind of feeling that yes, they have the ability to stay home, and that's what makes them so happy, and that's what keeps them sane. I think that we're losing that as we kind of progress, because there's, through evolution, I guess, because I don't see a whole lot of people that have that parental.
Well, I think
I don't
things
even know what the
change.
hell
It's not
called.
a parental thing, because you can have parental instincts and whatever if you're working. But I think there is something to be said. Is back in my grandma's day, for her to stay at home with all of the kids wasn't uncommon, and I don't think was super mentally. Well, maybe it was mentally draining. We should ask Grandma about this.
Well, I mean, she had a
But
bunch of cows. Like, I mean, it's
I
not
was
like
gonna say,
she lived on the farm.
She was on the farm. She
You go
still
out,
got
you
out of
do
the
the
house,
garden.
and then people would stop in. Like, it was not uncommon for your neighbor to come over and have coffee.
That's
and
right. That's why the grandma always had the coffee, like
the cake, the coffee cake.
Yeah,
or
no, it was the what the hell it was
what did your
called?
grandma have?
Oh, what the hell did she call it?
Mincemeat tarts? Is that what Grandma always had? No, what did
No.
Grandma have? Anyway?
That was company cake,
well,
right? So
yes.
it's like the towels in the bathroom that you're not allowed to touch when you come home and you're wanting to have a little bit of cake. No, that's not for you. That's for company.
Yes, and so, but I think now people don't just go to people's houses to have coffee, or maybe they do, and we just don't. We're just not those type of people.
Well, I've done that from time to time, and I don't do it as much as obviously my grandfather and grandmother ever did, my aunties, but times are different now. Like, I mean, if you're a farmer and that's what you do for a living, to go over to your neighbor's house, which typically that's what it is most of your friends are pretty much your close neighbors, to go for coffee is fairly easy. But for us to go 45 minutes into town just to go to someone's house for coffee, we typically do that when we're already kind of going into town for groceries or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as long as time allows.
But yeah, I think just kind of discussing the, who's going to stay at home if somebody has to stay at home. And then I think the other thing for me is, are you both expected to work? I know that there are some relationships where one of the spouses doesn't expect the other spouse to work, and they want them, whether they have kids or not, they want them to have the house cleaned and take care of the home finances and have their laundry done. And
yeah, but you're talking about their beliefs, as in like one, like, you need to be a stay-at-home mother or father.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
When we get married,
so it wasn't like a financial burden.
do I need to quit my job? Like, is that what you expect? Do you expect for me to quit?
What's your lifestyle expectations?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But
that's huge.
Right? I know that there
huge.
are some people that are like that just, especially, and I would say probably more so for the male side of things, the men that make a lot of money, that are maybe out doing more social events. For them, it is probably nice to be able to have a wife that they don't have to be like, okay, like, I need you to get this time off of work. We have to go to this big event. We need to do this. Whereas with, I would just assume people would be like, just screw it, quit your job so that you can support me in my career. Like,
yeah, I think, that's a good dynamic, because I mean, if in Grand, like where we're from, in a small town, we don't have that type of social aspect of it. I think maybe we do, but I don't really know about it. But I know that when I go to Calgary and I go to like a major city for meetings and stuff, yeah, like there are some friends of mine, their dynamic is, man, like it's an orchestrated, choreographed, someone taking this kid to this caretaker, that one's going to that babysitter or caretaker. I have this kind of lunch and learn here, and then we have a dinner meeting over this side, and it's just like this choreographed thing, and it's an elaborate system, and that is part of it. And I mean, they make it work. And I mean, I could see how some people, they're just like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, you might as well just stay home. We can adjust the finances and do whatever we need to do to make this work. But Yeah, I could see that being huge.
Yeah, or
Super
even
huge.
even like, well, maybe one day whenever we start making millions with my photography business, like this is a topic or a discussion that we've never had, but we've never talked about if one of us would quit our job to support the other one. Like there might become a time that I get
I
so
already
busy.
told you that.
Well, yeah, you just
I
want
said
to be
when
a
Don't
kept
Be Shy
man.
Photography gets to a point. I said I can't wait till Don't Be Shy Photography gets to a point where I don't have to work anymore, because I really enjoy, being home and working on projects with you, and obviously going out and doing what we do here on the farm. But to me, the biggest thing is starting to lose the passion for something is a very, very important thing to realize. When you start losing passion for something, you start to stop caring, right? And I'm thankful that my job, it's very rewarding, and it allows me to stay engaged. But again, I'm at that point in my career where it's kind of like, you know what, if let's say we started making tons of money tomorrow, I would have no problem walking into my boss and say, "Look, man, I'm headed out. I'm
I
good."
think that you would. You really enjoy what you do, and I think you really enjoy like brain, the brain stimulation that you get from it. But anyway, that to me, that's something else that people should discuss on the career side of things. Who's going to work?
But you touched on something it's very, very important, and understanding what their social needs is in terms of their culture. Okay, do you expect me to stay home? Do you not expect me to stay home? Because if you do, I can't cook, can't clean. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's a huge, huge topic.
Yeah, and then for me, I think another one with the careers, and this is something that I have really thought about in the last year and a half, I would say, is when you have two people whose careers are pretty much their life, which there was a point when you were kind of doing some changes in the company that you're with, and you were working extra hard, and you'd come home and you'd be on the phone and you'd be working, and I had 3 jobs on the go because I hadn't left my other career yet for photography, and we were just working all the time. And we were okay with that because we knew the long game. We knew work hard now. We are both okay with being
we're okay with making this small sacrifice now.
Yeah, but one of the things that we didn't think about when we got so busy was how it would affect our life
in the future.
No, just our life in the day-to-day things, like the house cleaning, the yard work, all of this stuff that we were like, frick, it still has to get done.
Yeah, all the day-to-day stuff still's got to get done.
And so I had said to you at one point, I was like, I was listening to a podcast, and so it was the Rise Together podcast, and Rachel Hollis and Dave Hollis were talking about how there was this point in their marriage where all they were doing was fighting about cleaning. And they were both like, we don't like to clean, and we're fighting about cleaning. And it was just putting this strain on their relationship. And they had said to each other that was their goal. Their goal was to hire a house cleaner once a week or once a month or whatever it was. And what they were going to do is they both agreed that they would rather put in an extra hour or 2 of work because they were really enjoying what they were doing to be able to pay for this cleaner so that they didn't argue about cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, my mind was blown. I'm like, I didn't even, I had never thought about that. Like, to me, I'm like, I can clean my own house. And it never dawned on me that getting a house cleaner isn't to have somebody clean your house. It's to have somebody to take the burden off of your relationship.
Right. Now,
I still don't have a house cleaner.
That being said, if I'm a stay-at-home dad and I'm like, hey, I want a nanny, or
no,
I
but
want
we were talking about when two people have busy careers.
But what I'm saying is that that being said, if I'm a stay-at-home father, and I'm like, hey, I'd really like a house cleaner for 2 days a week, and you're out there making $200K a year, $300K a year, and you come home and you hear that request, if I was you, I'd be kind of like, okay, well, then what the fuck are you doing all day? Like, well, how effective are you? And I mean, that's a tough conversation to have, because the last thing you want to do is say to your spouse that I just think you're lazy, or you're not very good at time management, or how about we shut the TV off? Like,
Yes.
there's
And
a tough conversation
that goes
there.
back to that discussion on who's working. So if you're the stay-at-home person, is your job to run the household? Because to me, if you're a stay-at-home parent, you have a career. Like your career is to be like the dispatcher to your family. And if your family only happens to be your spouse,
Oh, you're the coordinator. You're
then
everything.
you are going to be like the master getting
Well,
life organized.
so that's the other thing. I mean, being a stay-at-home parent is not the easiest job in the world either. However, not everybody can do that either. Like I said, be at home and to just manage yourself or the kids, even at that career. You still need a vacation from time to time. You still need time off. You still need a weekend off. I want to go out, and that's kind of where my next point would segue into. Would be, what kind of passions do you have, right?
Before we go on that, I have one more for the work one that I think is really important.
Sure.
And I think it really pertains to people in your industry.
Okay.
Is would you move for work?
The asking the other person what they would they move for
so
work.
We're getting married and you have the job that you have right now. Your question to me would probably be, would you be okay if we had to move for my work?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the area that we are in, it is very populated with people from other
Yeah, there a
provinces.
lot of transient people.
Yes, because
non-local.
Because we bring in so many people for like the oil and gas industry, right? Correct? I'm saying this correctly. Mm-hmm. And I will, over the years, I've cut so many people's hair. Generally it'll be men, and I'll be like, oh, like, do you live in the area? And they'll be like, oh, I'm just like, I live here, but I'm not from here. And I'm like, oh, like, do you have a family? And they're like, yep, they live back home. Mm-hmm. And then you get chatting with them and it's like, okay, well, why haven't they moved here? Well, my wife didn't want to move away from her mother. My wife didn't want to move all the way up here and not know anybody.
Yeah, the friends.
Right?
Yeah,
and so,
comfort zone.
And it makes sense to me, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to be with my spouse. Like, I would move anywhere in the world with you if that's what we needed to do for us to be able to live the lifestyle that we wanted, right? And if you had a career that you absolutely loved and they wanted to move us somewhere, then I would definitely be up for that. But I think that that's something that people really need to discuss going into a marriage, because the job that you have may not be the job that you're going to have 10 years down the road, and things are going to change. And so if an industry plummets and somebody loses their job, and the only way for you to get back up on your feet is to move your family, are you going to move, or are you going to do a long distance relationship? And if you're going to do a long distance relationship, there are people that do it, but
I don't suggest that at all.
Life changes.
There's probably a handful of people that I've known in my entire life that would have the ability to do it. However, that is not something I would suggest anybody to even attempt, because it is not. In my industry, I've seen so many people, oh yeah, we moved here, my wife, the whole thing, we got a house, and it was like 7 months later, considering the type of job that we have, and the guy's always out working, comes back after 15 days, has 6 days off, and then goes back. I find that the spouse basically says, I'm all alone and I want to go back home.
Right,
and
which is where that long distance relationship probably...
Well, but that again, and all I'm saying is that I've never seen it work, because ultimately they basically, they miss them for obvious reasons, and it takes so much money for them to go back and visit, and then they grow apart. I mean, spending 15 days away from your family or your kids or your friends it's a grind. And I mean, if you don't have the mental ability or the capacity to do that, it's super detrimental. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work, and it's just going to put more stress on your situation. So,
well, and yeah, that just depends on the person. Some people are okay being away from each other, and I think like we would be okay being away from each other, but I know that I don't want that. I know that I would quit whatever I was doing to be able to follow you if that's what we needed to do. And I think at the same point, I think you would be willing to do the same for me if it was my career that was the
The breadwinner?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
going for. But anyway, so that to me, I just think is something that people should discuss. But you were going to talk about vacations. Is that what I heard you say?
No, I said
Oh.
passion.
Oh, right. My passion is my vacation.
Yeah, like I said, it's a good segue from that, because ultimately your passions need to be communicated to your partner, because like we had talked about in an earlier podcast, is that my passion is sports, right? Being able to play hockey and being able to play baseball in the summer, going to the gym, being active is my passion, right? So it's not necessarily hockey or baseball or the gym. It's just staying active. So even when we're outside and we're out running the sled, or even when we're messing around with the horses, to me that is a big, big part of my life. And that sometimes requires time away from your spouse or time away from you. And if that person is very clingy or very is not supportive of that, and that type of time commitment, that's a tough conversation. And I mean, we've had that conversation where I go play hockey on Tuesdays, and you're like, "Do you really have to go?"
Is that really what I say?
Yeah, because
But
that's
out of
my
our
only
whole
problem.
relationship, that's what you think I say about hockey?
I know it's not your favorite.
No, really?
Yeah.
You're usually like, the guys are always so like surprised that you're so supportive of me playing hockey. And now you say that I'm not supportive?
I said sometimes. You're like, "Listen, I have hockey tonight." And you're like, "Do you really need to go to hockey?" And it has nothing to do with you telling me that you don't like hockey. It's more of less of you. It's just like, "Listen, today I had a really shitty day, and I just really like to go chill out on the couch with you because I want that support tonight." And
It's
how many times
not-
have I gone, "Hey guys, I'm not coming tonight. I'm going to stay home with you."
It's not very often that I will ask you to stay home from hockey.
No, but all I'm saying is that those times happen,
sometimes
and I've
because-
made that sacrifice. Have I not?
Yes, because of our lifestyle and our situation with the girls, is sometimes for me, it's like, because we don't have the girls all the time, and if hockey just happens to be 2 or maybe 3 times in a week, and it falls on 2 of the days that we have the girls, sometimes I'm like, like, do you really have to go? Because it'd be nice to be able to spend time as a family. Because, of course, your hockey night falls on the one night that the girls aren't dancing until, like, midnight.
Mhm.
They don't dance till midnight, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's just sometimes I ask you that. But I do think, like, one of my points that I had was, how much time do you need alone? And I think whether it's alone or away from your spouse, I do think that it is very healthy to have time away from your spouse. You know, that saying absence. Gee,
Makes.
what is abstinence?
Abstinence? That's when you stay away from sex.
Oh, right. Maybe mom and
Well,
dad.
absence is in hello.
Anyway,
you need to be very specific of what you're talking
well,
about.
it makes the heart grow fonder.
Both
Either
of
one
them
of them.
does. Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so I think, like, for me, I think that's why I've never really had a problem with you going to play, like, hockey or do stuff with baseball, because 1, I know it's a passion of yours and it makes you happy, but 2, it also gives you time away from me so that you remember how much you love me.
I don't obviously see it that way. I think of it as more of a mental vacation, right? Because like I said, you can go out and enjoy time by yourself, whether it be going to the gym or even hitting Starbucks and playing or doing your, like, working on the computer. You're working on the computer here, but I'm always in the background. I'm doing dishes, or you're kind of, rummaging around. I'm watching the hockey game in the background. Sometimes it's just nice to be alone and to not have any other type of responsibility than yourself.
Yes.
And I think that it's a big, big, big factor in terms of your mental health and your sanity, not only personally, but as a relationship, right? Or in a relationship. It's such a crucial decision.
Yes, I think it's really big to talk about how much time you guys are going to spend apart from each other, and make that a good goal, to, like, a personal goal, to really stick to that. Be like, I need to respect that my spouse needs to have time to do the things that they're passionate about, especially if they are not with me, because then it gives them that alone time for a mental break. And for me, my mental, like, I don't don't really go and do stuff for me, because my careers are for me. That's my time to get away and to be creative and that kind of stuff. But like my alone time, my mental break for me is when we travel separately. I guess if you want to explain, like when,
Meaning when I leave
well,
or when you leave?
either
or
like when
way? Well, so then does that consider like when I go to work every day and you're at home?
So when I worked in retail and I went away for buying shows for like 4 days or a week, I loved that. Like, it was great just to get out of the house, get away from you. I mean this in the most loving way.
What the fuck is wrong with me?
Nothing, but that was just my time to.
That's kind of how this last weekend was for me.
Well, so exactly. So Daryl just got back. He was gone for ball stuff for pretty much the whole weekend. And he doesn't even ask me now if I miss him, because I think he just knows that the answer
because you text
is
me,
no.
I miss you.
Oh, well, yes.
Hello.
But I sleep so well when you're not home, and I get so much stuff done. I might live like a bachelor. Like, I think I maybe dirtied 2 dishes while you were gone because I ate out of the same pan like 2 or 3 meals. But I get so much done when you're not here. Like, so much done.
Okay. Doesn't look like it.
What?
I'm just fucking with you.
I like plowed the yard.
I'm just messing with you.
But anyway,
Relax.
So for me, I just think stop it. I think having that alone time is good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, have we talked about kids?
No, I was gonna say, the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. Low-lying fruit.
Kids.
Kids are a big deal, guys.
Kids.
I mean, all my 2 cents on is that if you're going to talk about having any type of serious relationship, kids are obviously a big part of that. Understanding a few things. For one, do you even want to have kids? Maybe some people have medical conditions or are not even capable of having kids. How many kids are you wanting to have? Are you going to be really upset if you have 3 girls? Like, I mean, all of these things are kind of are big things to kind of cover, because once you've had that child, everything changes. Even once she becomes pregnant, everything changes. The whole relationship in ways that you cannot predict. And it's so important to be able to look at your partner and understand if they are capable of being able to pick up the slack. And that's kind of where I was going with it, in terms of, there are some guys who are they're fucking lazy. They'd rather play video games all day. And I mean, if she's pregnant and she happens to get bedridden, or, there's complications and she needs a lot of support, and if they're not capable of doing that, both, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, that is something you have to consider if you're going to have kids with this person. Because if they're absent, or they're not that type of person that can provide that support for you, is that somebody you really want to get involved with? Because once you have the kid, man, fuck, does it change everything. You don't really want to talk about it?
No, no, it's not that. Kids are, I guess, a touchy subject for me, because I think that it is very expected in life that people will just get married and have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's I think maybe becoming a little bit more normal for that not to be like the standard. But we happen to have quite a few friends that
don't have kids,
mm-hmm. or one of them doesn't have kids. Like, they might be in our kind of situation. And we don't generally lead with like, oh, when are you guys having kids? It's, are you guys wanting to have your own kids, or, what, like, however we word it, but it's never, when are you having
mm-hmm.
kids? Like, that's never my question.
We're never assuming that they're going to have kids.
And it's always so surprising to me how people are like, oh, like, yeah, like we're not having kids. And we're like, oh, like, we don't, obviously we don't judge, like, hello. But I just think, like, in society,
I think that even if we did have kids, we still wouldn't judge. I mean, to us, I don't think between the two of us and our personalities, I don't think we really give a shit about what people, what type of lifestyle they want to live.
No, but for me,
you.
I think that the kid topic should come up within the first 3 dates. And I know I may sound psycho.
Absolutely not.
But
Why would you want to invest that much time into somebody?
I was going to say, you cannot change somebody's mind about children. I decided fairly early in my 20s that I really didn't think that I wanted to birth my own child. Didn't say that I didn't want to have kids. I didn't want to birth my own child. And the person that I was with at the time did not want to have kids. Our relationship worked really well. Well, Holy Hannah, like my mom, had such a hard time with it. And I think if we would have stayed together, I think that probably could have put pressure on our relationship that we needed to have kids, right? Like it was that spouse's decision.
Who would have put that pressure on you?
Society, your family, like, you know what I mean? And so I think...
and you don't think that you two would have been able to deal with that?
No, I think we would have. But I think that's because we had that discussion early on. And it was very much my decision. And even when you and I got together, our first date, you were like, I don't want kids. And I was like, okay. And you were like, no, like, I'm serious. I can't have kids. And I was like, no, that's fine. And you just kept looking at me with this blank stare because I said it so confidently that I was okay with not having my own, like, birthed children. And I think after I had explained to you that I was okay with not having a baby. I'm not a baby person. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not. I love babies when they're like 6 months and older. I never wanted to be pregnant. I thought if I ever had a kid, a surrogate would be great. I wanted to adopt. I wanted to foster. Mm-hmm. When I met you, you were like a family in like a little bundled package with a messy bow on it. And so for me, it was great because you had the girls. And when I had told you that I was okay with not birthing my own children, I had said that I just wanted you to be open to fostering or possibly adopting. And you were okay with that. You were like, yeah, it's something that we could discuss, later in life if we needed to. And just the way that things have gone with the girls, I really like the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go back to that. And the reason why I said, yeah, we can talk about that, like that's something that is up for discussion. Because ultimately, earlier on, I think you realized, in our situation, you knew that we had little kids. So I think that we wanted to feel that out,
right,
and how that went. Because then obviously if it went well, or if we did good, then at that point you can say, listen, I think we want to add to our little family, or then it's like, you know what, I think things have changed so much in terms of careers and the whole dynamic of having a split family. You're able to actually have those discussions. Mm-hmm. And we never really shut the door on that.
No, and I was okay with you just saying, yes, I would be open to discussing that. And mm-hmm. so I think having that discussion with somebody very early on in a relationship is so, so important. Because again, you cannot change that person's mind. You cannot expect for somebody that doesn't want to have kids to just all of a sudden be like, meh, yep, let's have them. Why not? Because mm-hmm. then you're going to end up with a spouse that doesn't help you with anything, and you're basically raising your children by yourself, and you've probably just ruined your whole relationship, in my opinion. But I think having that discussion, and then the other thing was, like you had said, how many kids do you want? So how many kids do you want? I want 2. You want 4. Okay, maybe we compromise at 3. We would discuss. Yep, you have that. Okay, so what happens?
How many fucking times have we've had friends that, oh yeah, I only wanted 2, but she wants 4. I'm like, well, guess how many kids you're fucking having? Yeah, you're having 3, right? At least.
Well, yeah.
But that's the compromise. But you look at him and he's like, I don't really want to fucking compromise, but like you had 2, and it's kind of like, fuck, what's one more, right? But yeah, you can make a first line on
how many kids do you want to have? Yeah. But then I think an even bigger discussion is the what if.
What if what?
What if you can't get pregnant?
Oh, I see.
What if you try and you have miscarriages? What happens if you try and you never get pregnant? What happens if you're like 7 years into the relationship and you're both just tired of having sex for the sake of trying to make a baby?
Well, and it's not cheap either. And again, I think another factor with that goes back to my earlier point of, is the spouse that you're potentially considering has the mental capacity to provide you the support that you will need during those times.
Well, and sometimes I think, like, you may not know that, and I think it's not always the woman that has the hard time with that, because mm-hmm. I have known a few guys that they haven't been able to get pregnant, and they're like, well, is it me? Like, is it my man stuff? Like, is it something that I'm not? And it's just mentally hard for them. And then, like you said, it can be costly. So are you going to do, procedures to help you get pregnant? And these are all things to me that, like, I don't know if you necessarily have to have like full discussions, but I think it would be a what if. Like, are you okay if for some reason, like, if we decided tomorrow that we were like, you know what, let's have a baby, and you went and got fixed the opposite way? What's the reversed? And then
my gear would look like a bag of hamburger, whatever.
But yeah, so we try, and then we can't get pregnant. Like, I think it would have needed to be a discussion. What if we can't get pregnant? Are we both going to be okay with this? Are we going to adopt after this? Are we going to do like a surrogate mother? Are we like, what if?
Do you think that, I don't think that it has to happen within the first few dates.
No, but I think
that's something that once you've decided, hey, this person's pretty good, I think that we need to upgrade the questions a little bit, right? Let's take 1,000, family for 1,000 there, Bob.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Because in some people's life, kids are the be all, have all. I have to have kids. I do not want to adopt. And if your answer was, if we don't get pregnant naturally, it's not meant to be. I don't want to try. Mm-hmm. And that might not be your spouse's take on it. So I just think that having that what if discussion is an important one, so that if you're on the same page of spending thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant, or if you guys are okay with just being you.
I think even, and so here's one that nobody actually suggested that I've always kind of had in the back of my mind. And my mother died when I was 8, so I've never really had a motherly figure around, and I've always taken to obviously the mothers of the women that I've dated. One of the things that happens in a relationship is that, the husband or the wife likes to call their mom or their dad and have them weigh in, or their family, sisters, whoever, weigh in on some of the issues that happen. Now, getting advice on, what type of fucking mixer that you're going to get for baking or something is one thing, but to sit there and go through a scenario in terms of your finances, or whether you should build a house here or buy a house in over on this side, and having your family weigh in on that, and ultimately be your deciding factor in that relationship, especially decisions that involve kids and how you're going to raise your kids. I think it's important to realize that once you get married, and once you have, like, more specifically, once you have kids, whether you're married or not, as a male, as a guy, I always think of, like, listen, this is now my family, right? As close as I was to, my sister or my brother or my dad or my mom, that is now your family, and you need to protect that family. And having people, family members, get in on that and start to mess around with that dynamic, I would be very, very upset to know that you would take side of, your mom or your dad or your sister or whoever over my decision as your spouse when it comes to something important. And I think that it's very detrimental to that relationship if you can't learn to come together as a family and to know that this is it. This is now your family, and this should be a priority for you. I'm not saying shut your family out, but what I am saying is that this is now your family, and this is what you have to protect.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because one of the things on my list was, what role will your family play in our life? And I know for us, our situation is a lot different than most people, because you don't have parents. So we don't really have to share holidays with, like, my parents and your parents. But with my parents being separated, we are, I guess, lucky that they don't live in the same town. So we don't even have to split our time between.
I don't even think where they live matters, because I mean they're awesome. Like, both, like, your mom and your stepdad.
Well, no, I know,
but
I just mean, like, is in, like, splitting our time between them for holidays and that kind of stuff. But I know I had said to you very early on in our relationship that, you know, our parents have always kind of joked with us which kid was going to have to take care of which adult when they got older. And I had said to you, I was like, just so you know, my dad is my responsibility. I'm like, so dad will always be welcome to live on our back 40. And I had said to you, I'm like, he will never live in our house with us. Like I
want to be very fucking clear about that.
I was like, just so you know, like I'm not the crazy person.
Sorry, Pops. It's not happening.
Where I'm going to have my parents living with me.
I don't care how much whiskey you got.
It was something that I had told you because for me, I knew that this family thing was important to talk about that. And in my family is family. I do phone my family and ask them for advice on stuff. And I know that's something that's a little bit different for you, but I always use my final decision and what is best for our family in my final decision. But I know sometimes you're like, well, you're just going to message your mom and your sister to ask them anyway. And it was really funny because the other day, I had sent you something to proof. And I usually always send my mom and my sister anything to do with proofing. We've done it since I was in high school, and they used to proof speeches for like rodeo queen stuff. And it's just what we do. They are my proofers. So I sent you this proof, and you were like, oh, you're just going to send it to your mom and sister anyway. And I was like, actually, I'm like, I haven't sent it to them. And then I think somewhere in a group message, I had sent another one and you had made a comment about the previous one or something. But somehow my sister found out that she didn't get to proof something that you proofed. And she was like sending crying emojis. And she's like, you fired me. And she, you know, like, and it was just kind of like this. She was joking, of course. But it was interesting because as silly as it is, like,
she's good at that stuff, though.
I know. And like, and I think,
but again, that's not a major decision in a relationship.
But it is something that you've obviously noticed because you had made a few kind of little,
like we were talking
little
about
pokes about it.
Well, what type of security camera are we going to get for the farm? And then you kind of like I mean, ultimately, whether you're Googling it or you're asking your family, I think is relatively the same. Now, but that's kind of where I meant, though, is that the deciding factor, well, I don't want to do this because my dad said that it's not good.
Yeah, and
I'm
think
like, well,
that's
I don't give a fuck
problem.
what your dad says.
Yeah.
But I don't
That's
care
not
what your
true,
mom
Dad. He does
says.
care.
Well, no, but I'm just saying if we were somebody else and you had said, well, I want to do this because mom said that this would be the best way to go. And it's like, hey, listen, your mom is not in this marriage. We are in this marriage. And if we are going to make a decision on, are we going to go with a 5-year mortgage or a 10-year mortgage, we would obviously consult different people and say, listen, this is what my dad says, and this is what your dad says, or my mom, or whatever. And then at that point, you have to make the decision. And that decision can't be influenced to a degree of like, well, I only want to do this because mom said or dad said.
But
that is a horrible thing to do.
But I think discussing what role your family is going to play in holidays and that stuff, because to me, it would never be fair if you always spent, well, I guess maybe it would be fair if you both liked the one side better than the other. But to me, you can't always spend Christmas at the wife's house because that's what the wife wants and happy wife, happy life. I really, really hate that saying. I don't say hate
because it's not fucking true.
No, I really don't like it. And then you do like Boxing Day at the husband's house or whatever. Like, I just think discussing holidays, ahead of time, like how often you're going to be there, like how much role they're going to be in your life. And for me, like, in your family, like, although I wasn't getting in-law, like a mother and a father-in-law, I was getting sister and brother-in-laws, and we don't do tons for holidays with our families anyway, so it has worked out okay. But I think just discussing that, dynamic of how birthdays and holidays and stuff are going to roll out with your families is something really important, because I know that's something that a lot of couples fight about. We're lucky that our situation, we don't tend to have that kind of problem.
No.
But I know some people do, and I think it's important just to discuss how much your family is going to be in your life. And then I think back to your topic on asking your family for help or advice. I think that asking for help is another question that you should touch on before you get married. Because in every relationship, there will be a time that someone or both of you are like, fuck it. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the fighting. It's not worth the arguing. I'm done. And I think
I'm not sure I'm following. What do you mean I'm done?
I'm done. Like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore.
Like, no, okay, I see what you're saying.
Done.
You've given up.
Yes. And I think having the discussion beforehand about when the day comes and you're having a rough patch in your relationship.
When? If?
No, when. This one's, everybody's going to have a rough patch. I don't care who you are.
No. I thought you meant like if when the day comes that you're going to fucking
when
shut
the
it
day
down.
comes that you're like, I am like 1 foot out the door.
You're saying that when? Like, that's always going to happen?
Yes, I think every relationship, every marriage, every friendship,
I think that you would have some shitty communication if your relationship is already gets to that point, or you already think it's going to get to that point.
I've told you to fuck off a few times.
Yeah, but you're not 1 foot out the door.
No, I'm pretty sure I've been like, get your shit out.
Well, no, that's not true. Like, you can't, honestly, you're like, deep down, you're like, listen, pack your fucking shit, get out.
No. But, no, I haven't.
Okay,
I haven't
so I want to be very fucking clear, because if that's happened, maybe we need to, we definitely need to stop the podcast and have a different conversation.
We're really good about communicating. But, like, we've had fights, and I think just having the conversation about, hey, like, when things get rough, who else I'm allowed to talk to. Like, sometimes I can't talk to you about the fights that we've had, like this angle. And just so everybody knows, I'm holding my hands at a 45 peak.
That's not 45.
Yes, it is 245. So anyway, this argument right here, this 45-degree argument was a huge argument when we built the barn. And my hairstyling background is angles. And so I had held my hand at an angle, and Daryl's like, exactly what he just said. That's not 45. And it was 45. Well, actually, it was the angle that we were doing at the time was 33, to be exact. But anyway, we had this big fight about this, and it was just this thing. And I remember I had talked to my dad, because my dad and I are super close, and we had ended up laughing about it. And then I was talking to my mom, because again, as silly as this sounds, this argument was a big argument. And my mom had reminded me, she's like, pick your battles, right? And Daryl says this all the time to the girls. Is this a big problem or a little problem? And I think just having some people to be a soundboard outside of the relationship. And it's not that I was like complaining about Daryl. I was just really frustrated with the way that we were communicating in -30 weather on a Zoom boom, like 60 some odd feet in the air. That I just needed to bounce it off somebody. And Daryl doesn't really seem to have a problem that I talk to my family about our relationship, but I think it's because that I'm not like tearing you down. It's just usually,
well, even if you were, I mean, ultimately, everybody needs to have an outlet, right? They need to be able to talk to somebody. Some
Yes.
people go see a counselor or a psychologist. Some people go talk to their friends, and some people, to me, it makes me feel better that you're going to go talk to your family and your sister. If we were in a relationship where you didn't do that, unless you went and go talk to your best friend, who I probably didn't agree with on majority of things anyway. I mean, I would hate for you to go to that person for some advice, because as the spouse, you fucking hate that person already in terms of what they believe in and their thoughts and their views. And now all of a sudden your wife or your husband is going to that person for advice about your marriage or venting about that. Yep. Do you think that they're going to be giving them the best advice? So that's something I definitely need to caution. If you're going to go talk to somebody that, is going to provide you with some good advice. Well, and it's not going to be that feel good. Yeah, you're right. He is a dick, or she is a bitch.
And I think having that discussion on the, when this time comes and I need to have somebody to chat to, are you okay if I talk to my family? Are you okay if I talk to my best friend? Like, is there any off limits of who I'm allowed to talk to? Yes, Cheyenne, you're not allowed to go on a podcast and talk about our things. And then the other thing is would you go to counseling? Because there are some people that are a hard no on the counseling. And I do think that for some people it really helps. And I know when we had discussed on like our first or second date about you getting your divorce, one of the first things I asked you was, did you guys try to go to counseling? Because to me, divorce is not really an option.
You just told me you're half fucking foot out the door. Yeah. We not be living together, but we're sure as fucking getting divorced.
But no, you know what I mean, though? Like, it's not something that I think should come lightly. And to me, it just, it showed me the type of person that you were to be like, yeah, we went to counseling, we tried. Like, it's not like you guys were both just like,
I learned a lot through that. You learn to self-reflect on how big of a dick or a bad communicator or whatever that you are. You tend to self-reflect on that. And I mean, but instead of going into a divorce podcast, which I'm sure eventually will happen, one of the things I caution people, especially when they do get into that marriage, is the fact that if you're considering divorce, if you're considering that, yes, I need to end this, and I'm not talking about the extreme cases of, like, if you're being abused or that sorts of things, yes, you need to get the fuck out and don't listen to my next piece of advice. But if you're just in a relationship and you think you've just fell apart, or you just love too many different things and you just don't think you're going to patch it back up, my suggestion to you is that you need to self-reflect and remember that you married that person for a reason. Back whenever it was, 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, you married that person for a reason, and you loved them unconditionally at some point. And I think you need to go back and try and find that and to know why. And I'm not saying that people don't grow apart to a certain degree, but one of the advice that I've given other people that have tried to or have thought about getting divorced was the fact that you need to do everything that you possibly can to make sure that you save that marriage. Because if you don't go to counseling, or you don't try and talk to them to a certain degree and express what you're feeling on a very, very raw level, then you haven't done everything that you can to save that marriage. And if you're just going to get out of it for the sake of, because it's too hard, then I think that you did yourself and the person that you're getting divorced to a disservice. So really, really do everything that you can to try and save that marriage, so that when you are divorced and you are going to start dating and going into the next relationship, you can look back and say, you know what? I feel good with the decision that I made, because I felt I did everything I possibly could to be able to save that marriage. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but at the end of the day, you really have to do that.
Yeah, I think just making sure that you guys are on the same page about asking for help is important. And whether it's like a counselor, or if it's maybe somebody at your church, and that's another thing that people, I think, need to discuss is religion before they go into it. And you and I are still not really on the same page with religion, but I think we both just agree to disagree, and we both have our own thoughts on religion and beliefs, and we work well respecting each other's thoughts and beliefs. So I'm not saying that you guys both need to go to church every Sunday and, have the same faith, but I do think that you need to respect each other's faiths. So,
well, I think why it works for us is that I think that we both don't put a whole lot of salt into how much religion actually affects us as a married couple or in a relationship. Right. It doesn't define who we are.
Right.
And if you are that religious or that spiritual, then it's going to affect you more. That's going to be at the top of your list, or closer to the top of your list. For us, well, for me, it's not even on the list, but for you, I think it's pretty much towards the bottom. And then it's like, listen, if he doesn't believe, that I'm a Scientologist, then at the end of the day, that's not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah. So discuss religion.
She's a big Tom Cruise fan.
What?
You're
No,
not.
I'm not.
Fucking-
Jeez. Man. Anyway, discuss religion, your beliefs, how much of it is going to take up your time. Make sure that you guys are on the same page about that.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a really good one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Physical appearances.
Okay.
And I know that this is probably a funny thing to, well, it's not funny for us. This is maybe an oddball thing to bring up for things to
This will be
discuss
controversial.
before you get married. And even my family thought that Daryl and I were so weird that they even gave us gag gifts for our like engagement present or whatever it was regarding this topic. But Daryl and I have been very open about this topic. We discussed very early on in our relationship that our goal was to try to always be the best version of ourselves for each other, mentally and physically. Now, that's not to say that both of us are like in peak shape ever.
Well, we were.
I
I
guess
earlier.
when we first started dating,
well,
yes,
I think
we were in really good shape.
The point you're trying to make is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we would talk to each other and say, okay, like, honey, I'm not quite feeling it anymore.
Yeah, like we set boundaries, and we had said, because I
Or
remember
I'm almost about to not quite feel it anymore.
Don't tell me after
Yeah.
you
It
get there.
wouldn't
That's
be bad
horrible. You
once
got
you
to
get
give
to
me a
that
little
point,
bit of
no.
a head, like a heads up. But no, like we had said, and I remember I had said to you, right now I'm in really good shape compared to what I usually am, but I'm not usually any bigger in size. I just change shape and get a little bit fluffier. And you were like, okay, that's fine. I can handle that. Like I've pretty much always been my size. I don't change a lot.
I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. That's the thing, is that if you're sitting there in our relationship, I basically told you, if you're going to go and sit on the couch and smash bags of Doritos every day and not be conscious of the fact that, you know, you are double the size that you were when I married you, and I'm not attracted to that anymore, that's going to be a deal breaker for me.
And I don't think as a human that you can be upset at another person for thinking that. Like, I know my mom was like, well, that's just not very nice. And I'm thinking, you know, it is. You married the person for who they were at the time. I think that there is obviously there needs to be some grace. And I had said that to you. I was like, okay, don't expect me to be like in this good of shape in my 40s. And please don't expect me to be this size in my 50s. And you were like, no, like that's fine. But I don't want you to like double in size and not be able to go and be active with me. And I think that's our bigger thing, is that we like to stay in shape. Not that we like to be small or skinny or fit. We like to stay in shape because we like to do active things.
Yeah. If you were twice the size that you are, we would not be able to go snowboarding.
I don't even have to be twice the size that we are. We already figured that out last weekend, which was
you know what I mean? Like,
that was a big one for me.
It's a huge thing, is that if you can't come and be active with me, then at that point the relationship has changed fundamentally. And basically now the things that, you know, you didn't like hockey, now you really don't like anything going to the gym or anything active. So now you are literally doing something that your partner can't even participate in, even if they wanted to. And I mean, we talked about going back to the gym together at least once a week and kind of get back in that groove. You know, it's an important thing that we both recognize that I think is quite high on the list of things that we need to be attentive to.
The going to the gym isn't just because of the physical side, like the physical appearance side of things. Is I just know that mentally I'm better when I'm active. So that's a completely different thing. But we did have the topic before we got married about staying in shape for each other, staying attractive for each other. And I know some people just think that we are the biggest assholes for being like, I called Daryl chubby one day and
well, I'm sure there's some people that think that we're shallow.
Maybe that's
right?
it.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is what works for us.
Yeah,
like,
I want Daryl to tell me if my butt looks huge in an outfit. Now, that doesn't mean that I think my butt needs to shrink. I just need to obviously get better wardrobe.
I'll tell you all the time, like, honey, your ass looks flat in those jeans, or
yeah.
It looks, I mean, you got this or whatever. And I mean, we're we're conscious of the fact. And I mean, how many times have we actually said to each other, yeah, you need to go back to the gym because I'm kind of losing it.
Yeah, we don't do that often.
It's
though.
it's never
like,
happened.
No,
However,
like,
we have the conversation like, yeah, so I'm going to go to the gym. You should probably come. You call me fat? Not exactly. And then it's basically like, okay, yeah, no.
It was the girls that said fluffy. Daryl and I were having the discussion about being out of shape or whatever. And of course the girls are like, because we always tell the girls we're not fat. Like we try not to body shame, I guess, if you want to call it that. But we try to really teach the girls that it's important to be physically active and healthy.
Yeah.
But Daryl and I
has different shapes.
Yes. And we go over all of this. So don't think that we're just sitting here talking about, being just big in size. But like Daryl said, it would cost us a fortune if I had to replace my whole wardrobe because I grew.
That's right. I need new jeans. No, you don't. You just need to lose some weight.
It's, and it's like things like that. Like we're pretty open about it, but it would cost me a fortune if I had to replace my wardrobe because I gained too much weight. And so I don't need to go to the gym every day. I'm comfortable with my body, being fairly healthy and in fairly good shape. But it is something that we discussed early on that, as we get older, are we expecting each other to still stay in really good shape? And I would love to...
Yeah, you said I need to be looking like Terry Crews.
To who?
Terry Crews.
Who's Terry Crews?
He's the guy from the Old Spice commercial. Black guy, big, bald. It's like shredded.
Yes, the ginger's going to look just like him.
No, physically, dummy.
But anyway, so I do think that you should have that discussion, and I know it would be maybe touchy for some people, but after you have babies and stuff, for some people, it's a really good excuse not to care as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you just need to remember in a relationship that your spouse is the person that you married, that you chose to spend the rest of your life with, and being a good example to your children about being active and healthy is not a bad thing to do. Like, I'm not saying you need to go back to the size that you were before you had kids. I just think that dads put on a lot of sympathy weight and they get that dad bod and they just don't care to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was to summarize that again, it would be just you need to be conscious.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I don't mean to sound like a cow.
Of your partner. You don't. And for me, it's like I said, we have the relationship where I expect you to kind of go, hey babe, yeah, are you going to go to the gym twice this week or 3 times? And I'm like, what the? Oh, never mind. I got you. I'll be packing my lunch here tomorrow, doing some meal prep, and away we go.
Yes, but I think that's an important thing to discuss in your life, whether you think that it is important to you or not. I just think that whether it's the physical appearance or the being physically active as a couple is something to discuss. Because if you guys are out hiking and biking and camping and all this kind of stuff, and then you get married and you have kids, and then that stops, I think that you would miss it mentally. And
physically. And it's going to totally fundamentally change the relationship.
Yeah, so I think it's just important to talk about maybe like the whole physical thing, appearance, like being active, that kind of stuff. To me, anyway.
You got anything else?
I do have one other one.
You said you had one more. Now you got 2 more.
No.
Okay, well,
I had lots. I had lots. This one's going to be maybe another. I have a lot of touchy subjects. Opposite sex relationships.
Meaning?
Are you allowed to have opposite sex friends?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, let's hear your take on it. Are you asking me?
No, I don't care what you think. That's not true. No, I just think that going into a marriage, that it's very important that you are on the same page if you are comfortable with your spouse having a relationship with an opposite sex. And whether it's like a really close, like best friend relationship, or it's a work relationship and you're, maybe traveling with that person, you know what I mean? Like you have a close relationship with an opposite sex person, I just think it's important to kind of talk about that before you get married. And we talked about that because I have a friend when we got together that was super close with me that is an opposite sex, and you had a little bit of a hard time, obviously because of the relationship and the situation that it was. But I had explained to
because
you
it was a relationship.
Well, yes, because it was a relationship,
and that's kind of my that's my take on it, right?
Yes, and I know that it took me a while to kind of explain to you to get past the fact that we had a relationship and that we were friends. But I think I don't know. I think that you still would have had a little bit of a problem with it, even if I wouldn't have had a relationship with him in the past, with him just being a guy and being a close friend. I think it was still a little bit foreign to you to have, like, a girl have a guy as a best friend. Am I correct?
No.
No? Like, it would have been okay if it wouldn't have been a relationship in the past?
No. Yeah. If you, okay, so I have two scenarios when it comes to me for me making the decision on whether I'm okay with that relationship or not, or that friendship. So your specific situation, you had dated that person for a significant amount of time, right? So there was a lot of time and emotion invested into that person. So when you get to a point where you guys said that you had broken up and then all of a sudden you were friends, but then there was a little bit of a kind of hiccup in the middle. And then so for me, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, I know that you're friends. However, to me, it's like, okay, well, is it going to happen again? I want to see the dynamic. What type of friendship do they have? How do they interact with each other? Like, I analyze that quite a bit, maybe more than some people would. But for me, it was a big factor because ultimately, it's like having another rooster in the fucking hen house, right? Is it a rooster or is it just another hen that looks like a fucking rooster? But the other side of it too is if you were just friends and you never had a relationship with them, it's easier for a guy to say, "Oh yeah, they're just friends."
Is it easier though?
Yeah, it is. But
because you have friends
for me
that have different relationships, and we are like,
yeah. But again, that's kind of where I was getting at, is that when you even the first scenario, as a guy, you're gonna look at that friendship and you're basically analyzing it. You either give a fuck whether your wife is or your girlfriend is all huggy and they roll around the floor half fucking naked, or you aren't okay with it. What? Well, but that's what I'm saying. How comfortable are you with that relationship, and what type of relationship that it is?
Talk about what you do with your friends.
Well, I know people that are like that, and their husband's like, "Oh yeah, they're just friends," and I'm like, that is not fucking okay. It wouldn't be okay with me. So everybody's different. But what I'm saying to you is that if you were just friends with that person or a guy, I would be looking at that and say, okay, well, what type of friendship it is? How do they interact? And as a guy, you also have guy friends who are friends with chicks, and you know that they're basically just waiting in the shadows for something to happen up and hope to God that their number is called so they can get in there and fuck that, right? It's like a dick in a glass case in case of emergency, break open glass.
We were past that. But anyway,
if you think that it happens
moving
at 20,
forward,
but
with
we are
having
moving forward.
the opposite sex friend, I think that people need to have the discussion if they are okay with it. And like you said, maybe knowing the dynamics, because you had a friend that was a girl when we first started dating that you were quite close with, and she was trying to get into your bed.
And
it took you a little while, and I was fine with it.
No,
yes.
Dude.
Yes.
See?
I remember I kept saying.
This is it's a pot calling kettle black.
No.
Yes, it is.
I kept
because
saying.
I'm sitting there at that friendship, and I was like, no, we're just friends.
And then I had to show you.
But that's the problem, is that it bothered you that I couldn't see it.
Well, yes.
Because you knew that she was a sleeper in the shadows, just waiting for her opportunity.
Yes.
Okay, so then how is it any different than my situation?
But I still let you be friends because my
no.
friend wasn't creeping in the background.
We still happen to be friends. We weren't friends for very long, much after.
No, because you realized that was her intention.
No, she was just a horrible friend. That's why we stopped being friends. There's nothing to do with that, because I still didn't believe it at the time. But what I was getting at is that you had an issue with it. Deep down, it really bothered you. Oh, it's like, well, you went for lunch with her again, eh? I'm like, well, yeah, we kind of, like, she has something to sell, I have something to buy. We went for lunch, we were talking about this. Oh yeah, and it just, I could tell that it bothered you like deep down, but you're not the type of person that would kind of poke and start a fight. You would kind of rib me, but it's only to let me know that it's kind of bothering you, but it doesn't really bother you.
No, it's just like you just
you're
need to
letting
keep
me
an
know
eye
that
on it.
you're aware.
Yeah, you just need to keep an eye on it. And we've had the discussion because you work with a lot of females. And whenever I used to travel for work and I would meet with like male sales reps, you would always get like, "Hey," and I'm like, "It's just work." Right. And I think sometimes you just did it more for bugging me.
Yeah, I was ribbing you the same as you
just
were ribbing
like
me.
to bug me. But we had that discussion about you working with women, and I had said, like there's just, I think for me, there's a point in a relationship that something goes from being a work relationship to a friend relationship. And I'm not saying that it's not okay to have a relationship with an opposite sex, but I do think if you are hiding that relationship to an extent from your spouse, that's a problem. So like you had a woman that you had worked with, you guys were going for lunches and dinners and meetings and travelings and yada, yada, yada. And I didn't care. I'm like, whatever, it's work and I trust you. But then you had made a comment that you went to her house. And I was like, oh. I'm like, okay, well, and of course they don't live here. And I think you had seen maybe on my face or the way that I had said it that I was concerned, and you're like, well, her husband was there. And I was like, okay, which to me doesn't make a difference because for me it was, if you are a friend with somebody, your spouse should be invited into that relationship. Like it should never be oh, this is my friend. My wife has never met you. She's never seen your house. Like, does that make sense?
I don't remember who you're talking about.
That's okay. We can talk about that later.
Well, because I've never been over to another married woman's house.
Yes, you have. But it's okay.
I don't have any, that's my point. I don't have any married women
she's
friends.
Not married, and you just went to her house, but you said that she had a husband.
No. There was a situation where
we can talk about that
later. She
later.
invited me, oh, you should come on over to the house or whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, where's the man? And he wasn't there. And I'm like, hey, I got some meetings, not going to make it.
Which is great. Like, I think,
and I didn't go because I was like, that's fucking weird as shit.
I think for you, yeah, like that's good that you said that. And that's another thing that on the Rise Together podcast, they had actually chatted about that. Rachel had gone to a conference and there was another guest speaker there and he was a male and he had asked if she wanted to go out for drinks after. And she was she's like, I was kind of guarded because I didn't want to go to a bar with a married man, but at the same time it was just drinks, with a colleague. And so she's like, I'm just going to phone my husband to let him know that I'm going to go for drinks and I'll phone him after. And I can't really remember how the whole conversation went, but basically the man was like, I'm going to phone my wife and do the same thing. And both of their spouses were obviously thankful that they had done that. But on the opposite end, his wife respected her even more because she was saying, like, I'm not obviously doing anything with your husband. You'd be welcome to come and be a part of this conversation. But they were just really open about the fact that they were married, but they were going to go have like a work drink. And I think that's fine. And like I said, you do it all the time. I just think having the discussion with your partner before you get married, because the whole goal is to have all these conversations before you get married so that you don't end up in divorce. Like just try to get it all out. I think it's important to have the conversation. Are you okay with your spouse having an opposite sex friend? What are your boundaries? For us, we need to know the relationship and we need to be able to be involved or at least welcome to be involved in that friendship. Like I'm not like going to come and hang out with you. But
everybody has different tolerances in terms of that. So again, my idea of what my tolerance are by no means the bar that should be set for all guys. Because like I said, I have friends that allow their wife to do certain things. I'm like, that is some fucked up shit.
Allow their wives.
Well, but you know what I mean? If he didn't allow it, he obviously would be having a conversation and they wouldn't be doing that because that's the type of relationship you should probably have. And they should have the respect for, say, listen, I don't want you to do that anymore. And they should respect you to not do it. But what I'm saying is that you just need to have that conversation of what is okay and what isn't okay. And I think that's a huge, huge deal. And I mean, those are all big decisions. And I mean, the big decision, what was it? There was a wedding that we had did, and somebody had did a video of it, and they said that the best marriage advice I can give you, and they were doing a marriage advice video. That's what it was. The best marriage advice I can give you says, in our household, I make all the big decisions, and my wife makes all the little decisions. And the faster that you can realize that there are no big decisions, your life is going to be very, very happy. And I just thought that was hilarious, because ultimately, all of these big decisions, if they get to a point where they're so big, I think that you're not doing the groundwork to be able to deal with it when the decision needs to be made, rather than waiting till, the bridge breaks and then now you have to.
Yeah, like if your foundation is good on anything, house, bridge, relationship, then obviously, you got a good foundation, it's going to be good. So I think just asking these questions beforehand, and there are so many other questions that you can ask your spouse, but I just think that these topics, from what our research, a lot of these topics were suggested by multiple people, multiple times. So it's something, and a lot of the people that I had asked were new relationships, married for like 20 years, married for 40 years. And so I kind of had a little bit of everything, right? Like what people had kind of gone through and said that they wish that they would have talked to their spouses about. And like Daryl said, like our idea of thinking is by no means the right way. It works for us, but I think just at least talking about the topics before you get married will just save a little bit of headache when you are in a new marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think 2 hours is enough. What do you think?
I think we're good. It was a good topic. Like, it's an important topic. I'm
not
sorry
saying
that I
it's not.
talk so much.
You're giving me shit.
You ramble.
Thanks for joining us today on We Don't Talk About That with Lucas Land. If you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Help us spread the word by sharing it on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the handle @WDTAT Podcast. You can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can support the podcast by visiting our website at wdtatpodcast.com and clicking on support. You can make a one-time donation or consider becoming a monthly supporter through Patreon. You'll receive bonus content and access to patron-only benefits. Thanks for your support. We would love to hear from you. Leave us a voicemail by going to our website and clicking Send Voicemail. Your voicemail could be featured in a future episode. You can also email us at wdtatpodcast@gmail.com. Many thanks to Neil Curran and Infielder for the use of their music. You can find more of their music online at infielder.bandcamp.com. A final thought from Brené Brown. The willingness to show up changes us. It makes us a little braver each time. Until next time, keep showing up and keep being brave.
What are you gonna do?
Que le vaya bien.